Welcome to Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Lynn Elias, Movie Shark DeBlore. You can find me online doing movie reviews, in print with movie reviews and interviews, moderating. I just had the pleasure this weekend to moderate an outstanding Q&A for the Academy and for the Weinstein Company with Carol, Oscar nominees Phyllis Nage, Sandy Powell, and Ed Lockman. Absolutely amazing and an incredible time. And for those of you that are listening, Film Independent members, remember, Phyllis and Ed are also up for Independent Spirit Awards, and voting for that opens this week. So bear that in mind when you're marking ballots. And speaking of ballots, the hot controversy continues with the Oscars, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, let me tell you who we've got lined up today. We went to hell last week. We're going to go back to hell again, but a different kind of hell. In the last half hour, we're going to have writer, director, and editor Nathan Williams join us live. His film, If There's a Hell Below, just had its world premiere last night at Slamdance. So we're going to get to talk to Nathan about that. It is a fascinating psychological thriller filled with ambiguity that lets your mind, just takes your mind on a journey as you watch this powerful story with little dialogue unfold. And we're going back to visit some altered minds, too. Last week, Jamie Ray Newman talked to us about the film and her character of Julie. Today, Joseph Lyle Taylor is joining us at 11:15 to talk about the film and his character, Leonard. And Joseph, I've had the pleasure of talking to before. He has turned in some incredible performances in big films, little films alike. I talked to him a couple years ago at LA Film Festival for Dead Man's Burden by Jared Moshe. Wonderful film, revisits the American West period piece. Joseph has also been in Justified, along with things like Seven Psychopaths and The Dark Knight. So we're going to have Dark Knight Rises. So Joseph will be here to talk about Altered Minds. And at the half-hour mark, we've got writer-director Michael Wechsler, the man behind Altered Minds. And we're going to find out how he got to actually use Julius Erving's former house for shooting the film, among other things, and how he got Judd Hirsch involved. So I'm really looking forward to talking to all of them today, especially given the tone of both of the films. Both are psychological thrillers. Both have a noir sensibility to them, but are both so distinctly different. So it's going to be very interesting to hear the approach that Michael had with Altered Minds and that Nathan took with If There's a Hell Below. So stay tuned for that. But as I said, the Oscar controversy, it is ongoing. It is continuing. And Cheryl Boone Isaacs of the Academy, Board of Governors, they have issued some new rules and mandates that they're implementing in trying to diversify the Academy membership. And one of the big points that is generating the most comment from what I can see and what I'm hearing is the fact that now, if you have not been active, and they really need to specify what they mean by active, if you have not been active in the film industry for 10 years, you no longer get to vote. This presumably will now knock out all of the elder statesmen who have since retired, but on whose very shoulders this generation of filmmakers stands on. And quite honestly, and again, this is my opinion, is that the elder statesmen are being stomped on if they are no longer going to be allowed to vote. A lot of people say, they don't see the films, they don't do this. I know so many of the legends, big and small, that are still alive with us in the Academy, and they take their screeners very seriously. They take the voting very seriously. And in a day and age where we are now going back and embracing and reinvigorating the use of film, Rob Richardson and Quentin Tarantino bringing back Ultra Panavision and 70 millimeter. Ed Lockman shooting Carol in 16 millimeter. A lot of the younger generation of filmmakers, many of them are unfamiliar with the texture, the emotional storytelling, and the layering of the older formats that are now being reinvigorated, reintroduced. We may end up with the very same situation on many levels, where we're not looking at merit anymore. But the travesty and the tragedy of it is that these founding fathers, the second generation of founding fathers of Hollywood and the Academy, are being put out to pasture by their very own. And it's a very sad, sad commentary. I would propose to AMPAS that they would reconsider their definition of active and change it to, if you haven't voted in 10 years, it shows your disinterest. In that case, then retire them from voting, but let them retain their emeritus status with the Academy. But to deny them people to the right to even vote, I think when they are active and they are participating in the process, maybe no longer making films, but participating in the process, I think that will open up an entirely new can of worms that some savvy attorney out there is going to jump on. And so this is not the end of this Oscar controversy and this quest for diversity with a more or less forced affirmative action revisited. So we'll be watching that to see what happens. It won't affect this year's Oscars and the Oscar voting. Any changes that are being implemented in this expanded diversity that they are so desperate to attain will begin next year, I believe. So that's enough on that for today. Other than to say, I can't wait to see what Chris Rock and his team of writers, apparently they've gone back in and are rewriting and restructuring the opening monologue, undoubtedly addressing this whole controversy that is going on about the lack of minorities in the nominees in the acting categories for Oscar this year. Again, merit, merit, merit. The Oscars are about merit. Who is the best? And not just the best in your particular film, but the best in comparison to other people in the similar category and situation. And that is something that people are losing sight of. It's not about what color you are. It's not about what race you are. It's not about what ethnicity you are. It's about merit. Who and what is actually the best. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm sorry, Will Smith, you were really, really good in Concussion, and it is one of your best performances, but it is nowhere near a best in comparison to the gentlemen that were nominated this year. So, before Joseph Taylor gives us a call today, let's take a look at a film and costumes that were overlooked with Oscar nominations. And that is the costuming of The Hateful Eight. Courtney Hoffman is a fabulous young up-and-coming costume designer. She's done a few things. She's very proud to tell me she is from Culver City. But what she has done with the costuming for The Hateful Eight is so beautiful and so intuitively designed for the period, but also embracing the cinematography and the use of those Ultra Panavision lenses. One of the things that stands out immediately on watching the film is, when he does appear in the film, is Channing Tatum and his outfit. Many of you older Hollywood, or if you're familiar, watch a lot of the old 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s Westerns in particular, you'll notice the pants on many of the stuntmen, many of the cowboys, many of the wranglers. And they were all made by the company Dickies, a particular fabric with a little bit of stretch in it, and a little bit of grain that works really well when riding saddles and, rough and scruff and dust and dirt. And you used to be able to buy this at Nudies on Lankershim in North Hollywood. Nudies went out of business a few years ago. But in designing the look for Channing Tatum, Courtney reverted to that look, to that Dickie look. And while they're not the authentic Dickies that were made in the day, these were made the exact same style, the same fabric. And because she knows Channing Tatum's body so well, having dressed him, or shall we say, less than dressed him in Magic Mike, she knows how to make Taylor clothes to fit for him. And as every lady out there will notice, the front and back lingering shots of Quentin complement Courtney's work.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I was the assistant on Magic Mike.
I know.
So I knew what I was working with.
Yes, you knew where
but I do actually think when I see that, I'm glad I didn't overdo it. Like, they're not so tight that, but Quentin did do that shot with those, you know.
He's got the two,
I know.
two lingering butt shots.
Lingering butt shots with his fancy bling. He's the only one that has that kind of really flashy.
Yeah.
So it's literally like draw attention to the front, draw attention to the back. I couldn't agree more.
But there's a lot more thought that also went in, besides how good the pants look on Channing Tatum. There's a lot more that went into the design of his costume, and Courtney elaborated.
But that's very perceptive of you, because our biggest reference for his costume was the tall T, which is, you know, right there. So that is and that's why he kind of actually does have a silhouette that sets him apart from everybody. And I ended up saying to Quentin, like, we can't just go the tall T, because to me it's too Americana, and they've been spending all this time in Mexico, this gang. So I did the Mexican version of the tall T.
Yeah, and for those of you that I know, my TCM fans and listeners out there will know the film The Tall T, 1957 film starring Randolph Scott and Maureen Sullivan. It was directed by Boo Betisher, based on an Elmore Leonard story. An amazing film. This was also a film that Randolph Scott was an associate producer on, and Charles Lawton Jr. did the cinematography. So anybody that ever tries to say that older films are not of value, a young costumer went directly back to the two older films to get the look and design of this particular costume. We'll get to some more of Courtney in a bit, but right now we have the wonderful Joseph Lyle Taylor on the line. Hi, Joe.
Oh, hello.
How are you? Welcome to Behind the Lens.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh, I am so thrilled. You know, as I was telling the listeners at the top of the hour, I mean, you've been around forever, and we actually did get to talk a couple years ago at LA Film Festival, Dead Man's Burden.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. A Dead Man's Burden, that was a fun movie.
That was an amazing movie, and your character of E.J. Lane.
Oh, E.J. Lane, that's correct.
Was so much fun.
He was, yeah. And the handlebars alone, you know, that I grew out for him.
No, I mean, that I was so happy to see that, because and so glad to see that some of the younger directors are embracing, you know, the Old West when they are creating these wonderful palettes, and your and the characters, especially the depth that you bring to your characters and your performances, be it in Justified, be it in something like Dead Man's Burden, or even, you know, smaller parts in like Seven Psychopaths.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to say.
I mean,
yeah, it's interesting, you know, to play a part like a guy in Seven Psychopaths, you know, because you don't have a whole lot to go on, and you really just fill it out, and then when you watch it yourself, you know, 'cause when I watch my own stuff, it's difficult for, I think, a lot of actors to sit through it, you know, because it's like playing music. You really only hear the bad notes, you know what I mean? But if you could take it deep, you know, if you just take the time to get it deep, then it's, you know, it's a much better experience, you know what I mean?
Well, and you definitely take it very deep here in Altered Minds with the character of Leonard. You had me going, and I mean, this speaks so highly of Michael and what he crafted and what he wrote. Leonard, you play him so ambiguously that at one moment you think he's the heavy, the next moment it's maybe he's not. Then you think, okay, is he a nut job? you really, really play with the audience's mind with your performance.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was very interesting. Someone else was going to do Leonard, and so I came in at the last moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened, but pardon me, I came in at the last moment. So I think I had read the script when I showed up. We had a couple of days rehearsal, like 3 days of rehearsal, and so I really made the choice, to let whatever happened to just happen,
Mm-hmm.
not to censor anything or, because I didn't have a whole lot of time to really look into the character that much, but it was all in the writing. And so it really became a very interesting exercise, and to work with an actor like Judd Hirsch, who is so amazing to work with. Really, I mean, his performance is phenomenal in this. So it was a really great experience.
When you first got this script, when it came to you, do you remember what your first impression was of the story as a whole? Because this story is not something. It's very nuanced. There's a lot of subtlety to it that it falls upon performance and ultimately in Michael's editing. The editing choices as to how this noir sensibility is going to unfold. Do you recall your first impressions when you got this script? Because it could have been played so many different ways.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't really remember, but I do remember. I don't know if it was my first impression of it, but the most vivid impression, I liked the idea that this character, Judd Hirsch's character, had manipulated his adopted kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of reminded me of, what's that great movie? They did a remake of it. Liev Schreiber did it, but Andy Griffith did it in the Manchurian Candidate.
Yes.
It kind of reminded me of Manchurian Candidate. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. And it was, the script was a bit long and heavy, and Michael shot it, and Adrian Correa was our DP, who is really fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the editing room, I think they really trimmed it down, and it's really turned into a nice, tight movie. I think what is it, the runtime? About 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's at 94, 97 maybe.
Yeah, so it's real nice and tight, and I was really, real impressed with what they had done with it, what Michael and I think Tom, the editor, had done with it. And the music is great. It's really turned into a very nice film.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned Judd, and Jamie was on the show last week, and for her,
love her.
That was one of the high points. And you didn't treat her like an adopted sister. You treated her like a real sister with the two of you in character. I just want you to know that. There's so many siblings out there that, they get, and I've seen this in so many films where the adopted children are never treated the same as the natural born child. And that's something that you really conveyed beautifully here, especially with Jamie's performance. Ryan, of course, was, more a loner in and of himself as Tommy. But you and Jamie had a beautiful, beautiful on-screen chemistry.
Oh yeah, well, I think I'm really fond of her. She's really one of the sweetest people, and talented, and her husband Guy is really fantastic. And they're just the whole cast actually was really great. We had a really good time.
And this was
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and this is a very small cast, and it's very self-contained within essentially, one site. There's not location shoot. You're not driving here, there, and everywhere. No big set pieces. This is one location and just an intimate family grouping.
Do you know whose house that was we shot in? Did they tell you?
Oh, I know whose house. I'm from Philly. I know whose house I know whose house that was. Julius Irving's.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing to Dr. J. Yeah, Dr. J's old house. And it was a beautiful place. We had a lot of space to work in, and it was really nice to have pretty much everything located right there. And then I think Ryan and Michael had to go pick up a couple other locations, but the majority of it is there, 95%.
So now I have to ask you the obvious question then. Are you a basketball fan?
No, I'm not. But I did watch when I was younger, and Michael Jordan and Dr. J and Magic and Larry Bird I liked a lot, But I have since given up on the sport of basketball, and have taken up golf.
Uh-oh. Okay, you're dating yourself now.
Yeah, that's right. That's what happens.
Now, how was Michael as a director, his process with working with the actors on set? And I ask you this also for comparison because you also worked with Sidney Lumet.
I did work with Sidney, yeah.
As did your editor and as did your first AD.
That's correct. Michael Metter and Tom. We all three of us worked on 100 Center Street. Michael was great. He pretty much, he had his idea of what he wanted to do, and then he let us, flesh things out. And it was a good symbiotic relationship. And Michael's also an editor, so he really comes at it from the point of view of, how he's going to cut, so it's you don't shoot a whole lot of extra stuff with him. It's pretty tight.
Do you like that as an actor? When you
say that one more time?
Do you like that as an actor when you have a director who does know what he wants, so he keeps it tight in the shooting and doesn't rely on cleaning things up in the editing bay?
Oh yeah, that's key. When we worked with Sidney, we hardly, and Sidney directed probably, I guess he probably directed half of the episodes that we did, the 2 years we did 100 Center Street. And we hardly worked over an 8-hour day when he was directing. I mean, he came in, he knew exactly what he wanted to do, and we'd block it out and shoot it. And it was, and Sidney was real careful with the actors. He let the actors, he didn't call actors to set early. He was, because he was an actor himself, so he sort of understood the process of, because you really have to get focused, and when you're in there, people are still setting up lights. It just sort of drains your focus a little bit.
Well, now,
it's a little bit crazy, but it's true.
Now, Altered Minds, that was shot. Michael shot that digitally, correct?
He did.
So now, how does that help you or hinder you? I know I've talked to Sam Elliott about this before, because he didn't think he would ever get used to the process of digital lensing. But he said it's great because you still have that energy going. You can keep going. You don't have to wait for setups.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely true. I worked with Sam Elliott on Justified. I came in and shadowed Adam Arkin directing an episode, and so I got to hang out with Sam Elliott, which was he was really great. What a great guy he is.
He is.
And what a fantastic actor.
Oh, my God. He is the salt of the earth.
He really is great.
And he's so generous to everybody, who comes in, who's younger than him, to new people, if they want help, if they want advice, if they want to watch. I mean, it's fabulous. He's great. Fabulous.
But I agree with him on digital. The great thing about digital is that, you can do a take and say you have, you just drop a line, or you want to just start the scene immediately again. You could just keep going, because you're not wasting film. And I like it. I like it a lot.
So,
but film also is interesting too, because we shot Dead Man's Burden on film, and so we rehearsed the scenes a lot before we started them. So we had them just, everything was right. So that's cool too. But the digital age is very interesting for actors, because you can just keep rolling.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you have? I mean, the scene where Leonard just totally flips out in the last third of the film as we're nearing the ultimate climax. How challenging, how difficult is that for you? What do you draw on to, get that level of rage, get that level of energy going and sustain it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't really know that I have an answer. I try to get off in a corner and get quiet, and not be bothered by anything and just allow, because at that point we've done a lot of work. We've shot most of the movie and everybody's pretty comfortable in their characters. And I've also done a lot of theater, here in New York. And so I like to get quiet and, I've done my homework. I know where I'm coming from. I know what I need to do. And then I just let the moment take me, Get yourself into a position where you're available for the truth of, the truth of the moment and go with it. Don't censor yourself.
Mm-hmm. How much?
Because I had to in the end where I'm trying to kill Judd. You just have to go for that. I mean, you can't come at it weak. It's like you go for it and that's it. There's no...
Okay, now were you afraid of actually hurting him while you were in the moment?
No. Yeah, I stayed in control. But I have worked with other actors who, you're like, all right, dude, we're acting here. Don't hit me.
And sometimes, that bruise is there for a few weeks after you get hit.
I got a bruise right now. I'm shooting an episode of Blue Bloods, and I'm playing a pretty interesting character. And so we got into a little tussle, and so I got a couple bruises.
Uh-oh.
But it'll be all right.
Are they anywhere where the makeup artist now has to cover them up?
No, they're just on my arms, so it'll be all right.
Long sleeves, you're fine.
Exactly.
Joe, what do you look for? When you're looking for parts, be it for the stage, television, or film, what is is it a script? Is it the director? What is it that entices you?
Well, a lot of times I have to audition for things, so I'll get a script, and if it moves me in some way, then I will go in for it, and then sometimes I get offers, like this was an offer for Michael's piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, I look for emotion in the script. I look for depth of character.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's funny. So I guess I look for honesty. And if it comes off the page honest to me, then I'm interested.
Well, I'm glad this one jumped off the page at you because your performance is absolutely fabulous, and it's an incredible film. Well,
thank you very much. Yeah, I'm real proud of it.
Well, and on that happy note, I'm going to let you go because I have your director, Michael, on the line to come in and talk about the film.
The young Rob Reiner.
The young Rob Reiner.
That's right.
Well, Joe, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back on the show again in the future.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Oh, an absolute joy. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And we're good to go. And is this the fabulous, as your star, Joe Lyle Taylor just called you, the young Rob Reiner, is this the fabulous Michael Wechsler?
I'm sorry, I just jumped on. All I heard was Rob Reiner and then Mike Wechsler.
Yeah, I just had Joe on the line, and I told him, I said, well, okay, we're going to end with you because I have the fabulous Michael Wechsler on the other line. He goes, oh, the young Rob Reiner.
That's so funny. I have actually had people say I sound like Rob Reiner. I'd rather, which is, I think is a compliment. I actually loved the movie he did with River Phoenix, and I think it was Ethan Hawke in it. Stand By Me.
Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So God, should be so lucky to have even a fraction of his career.
Well, I'm still very partial to The American President.
I have not seen that.
Oh, with Michael Douglas and Annette
Right,
Bening, it
right,
is
right.
it is so it's fabulous. It's pure enjoyment
Ah,
from beginning to end. It's nothing earth shattering.
right.
There's a lot of human emotion and interaction,
Mm-hmm.
but it's pure enjoyment. Every time if I'm flipping channels at home just to have white noise in the background, and I happen to stumble on that, I must stop what I am doing
That's your stop everything
and
go-to movie.
and sit. And I've got a few like that, and it's like, oh my god, well, let's just take a short break and watch a little bit of this, and the next thing you know, I've watched the whole thing, you know, and
You can always, just, feed a DVD into one of the inputs on your television and have a constant loop of it, and then just be
well,
like, well, I feel like watching it.
then I'll never get anything done. If I did that,
That would be me with like Blade Runner. I would just be like, okay, I think
have
I'll watch this for an hour and a half, 2
well,
hours.
one film that everybody needs to watch is Altered Minds. Michael,
Oh, thank you so much.
I've seen it now. I've watched it a couple times.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Because
Okay.
you have so much texture and nuance in the construct of this film, from story to characters. And I talked to Jamie about this last week, and I mentioned it to Joe. It's like the ambiguity that you create, especially within the character of Leonard, who could be turning on a dime. I mean, it's like one minute you think, okay, he's the one who's responsible for untoward events that have gone on or are going on, and you lead us down these little paths, but then it twists. It's a fabulous noir touch that just it's intriguing.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to hear it. One of my first and foremost goals, I think, with the film was that I really wanted there to be this constant questioning from the part of the audience, questioning as to who was bluffing, who was telling the truth, and at a certain point in this film, it's really the main question is, did the Judd Hirsch character, who's a psychiatrist who adopted all of these children from war-torn countries, did he adopt them because he loved them and wanted to nurture and heal them back into the world of the mentally healthy, or did he adopt them because he was just trying to accomplish
experiments,
his ends, the experimentation. So, it's important for all of it was important, I think, for all of the family members that are in the story to make you wonder and think at various times in the film if they know more than they're letting on. And I'm happy to say that the people who've really enjoyed the film, I've had responses from people saying, I thought it was Leonard, I thought the mother knew something, I thought Julie was something, and then that was kind of the sort of sense of disorientation I wanted people to experience, that really until the end, you're kind of like thinking you know who it is or have an idea, but then it turns out every time that suspicion rises, you knock it down.
And that's exactly what I experienced watching it. And that, to me, that's a testament to you as a storyteller. That's not just being a filmmaker. That's being a storyteller. When you can take us down, take our minds, the minds of the audience, down those various paths. I mean, it's like a book and turning the pages in a book, and you don't know what the next page it will behold.
Well, you're really making me feel very, very. You're blowing my ego up right now. Better slow down.
Well, I mean,
I appreciate that. Well, there was just a lot of care and a lot of love went into this film, not just by myself. Obviously, I just had a really tremendous team of creative people and collaborators I was so fortunate enough to work with. All the actors, obviously. I mean, I think they did such a phenomenal job, and really were the ones that brought these characters to life and made us believe that this was a family going through this horrific crisis. But also just every little layer. Filmmaking is comprised of so many layers, that you just don't see. There's the finished film, and you see what's in front of you, but there's all the action going on behind those scenes and after those scenes are shot behind the scenes of the edit room, and all of the contributors, everyone, I think, was on this, we were all on sort of the same page. This was not like many an independent film and a passion project, which I think we could call this for sure. And anything where you've been working more than 5 years, it's a passion project. Film actually, 10-year run is kind of normal, but anyway, this was a passion project. I think everybody knew, and everybody who worked on this, they were drawn to some aspect of this and some aspect of it in the script, and really gave it their all. And I really wanted to. You were saying like layers and textures. Like I wanted people to be able to experience what it was like to be in a home that is, a house, a family with a family that's really falling apart, and to be really, just coming into the story thinking, I know this home, I know this family, and then midway through going, maybe I don't know what I'm seeing here, maybe they're not so familiar, and then really 3/4 of the way and going, God, everything I thought I knew, it's sort of suspended at this point. I wanted people to feel that sort of sense of tension all the way through, and I think all the different departments, from the cinematography to the editing to the music, the acting, everybody really came through. So, I'm happy to and appreciate getting a wonderful compliment from you, but it's a compliment to everybody, right? Because I think, the director may be steering the ship, but the ship is being run by an incredible, team behind it.
Well, and as I said to Joe and I said to Jamie last week, one of the big keys with this film, once you have these performances down, in order to maintain the pacing, that rapier edge, it comes down to your editing. This is a situation where performance and editing go hand in hand with this film. Right,
absolutely. Tom Swarthout, who I can never say enough amazing things about him. He's a friend, and he is. There's a reason why Sidney Lumet had Tom edit his last 4 movies.
Yeah.
He was really good at keeping. We were always really, really focusing when we were putting the film together in the edit. I was always saying to Tom, I want us to be ahead of the audience. And I said, I don't want the audience to be ahead of us, because if the minute they get ahead of us, even though that seems difficult in a movie like this, the minute they get ahead of us, then then the question pops up: Why should we even watch at this point? Like, we kind of figured this out. So that was important, but equally important was the sense of dread, and the sense of the sort of ominous sense of something being wrong here. Had to gradually build from beginning, and then sort of spiral out of control, and had to be reflected in the editing and in the pacing, and he really got that. He got the cadence really well, and like a great editor too, he was very good at holding my hand during some of the more difficult times, where it was time to lose a scene or cut some dialogue or get rid of something he knew that was sacred to me in one way or another. But we had a really good open communication, and I think understood kind of like the pitch of the story.
Well, yeah, and another big part of this, and you touched on it when you said that, you see the house, you think you know the kind of people, you think you know the family in the house. And in the case of this particular house, so many people recognize this house because of the fact it was once owned by Julius Erving.
Right.
So already, anybody in the Philadelphia area, the 76ers fan.
I wonder. I did wonder that.
Well, when I saw the house, I said, I've seen that before.
Really? Are you from Philadelphia?
I am, born and bred.
Oh, you're kidding. Okay. Are you in Philadelphia right now?
No, I'm actually, right now, I'm out in L.A.,
okay.
Which is where I am. No, I'm born and bred. My dad worked at Channel 6 for 60 years. My brother works at 17.
Okay. Well, good. Well, we have a real Philadelphian. I love Philadelphia, by the way. That's just a complete aside. It's such a great city.
Well, I mean, you picked it to film this, even though you needed snow, and you pick it on one of the warmest winters that they had.
Right.
Now, see,
right.
if you'd waited to this year,
well, that was definitely a time where Mother Nature wasn't cooperating with the film, as she often doesn't.
Now, what does that do when Mother Nature does not cooperate? What does that do to your budget, to your timetable, when you now have to go and manufacture snow?
Well, I think in the case of this film, since a good portion of the movie takes place inside the house, much of the sound design was meant to create a presence of winter, through the sound, even though we weren't necessarily outside that often, but we'd always hear, you'd always hear the wind howling, hear the noise of what was going on outside, the ice crackling. So when we were going into this film, there were no illusions that, we'll be able to guarantee that there's going to be snow outside. So when you shoot against the window, you'll see the snowy backyard. Everything will be taken care of. I kind of went in with my DP and said, look, we have to prepare that there'll be no snow. It's the end of December. These days on the East Coast, the Northeast, December is kind of like now become the end of fall.
Right.
It's like we didn't get the first snow until this week. Mm-hmm. So, we're well into the end of January. So our what's that?
Oh, no, I didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry. So basically, in terms of the weather affecting our plans, it really didn't. We decided aesthetically when we were shooting inside and we'd see a window, we were just going to blow it out, basically. Mm-hmm. And that way we would create the sense of a whiteout outside. And I think that actually, I hope it works. You just don't question it. It's really it's kind of like freezing and there's lots of craziness going on winter-wise outside, and you represent that with the noise, the sound of it, and that white window, which you see a few times in the film.
Yeah.
The rest of the movie was anytime you saw snow or icicles outside, for the most part, those were all computer-generated graphics done by animators. And they did it for a low-budget movie. We did not budget CG. We didn't budget it. We kind of figured we would be able to make enough, get enough real snow in a small area and just make it work. And the truth is, those scenes that take place outside were just, there were wide shots in there, and there was no way to be able to realistically portray this winter by having those wide shots when we shot them, which we shot those in March, end of March. It was then going into spring. There was no way that people were going to see those and go, "Oh, that's a really cold winter." They would have seen too many colors and not enough snow. So we ended up having a lot of shots, and I just kind of took the attitude like, okay, we'll find some animators to draw it in and do some rotoscoping, and they did a great job, but that landed up kicking our budget a little bit.
Yeah,
kicking the butt a little bit, but there was nothing we could really do about it, and we landed up creating some snow, which was real from ice skating rink shavings. We found a couple of local ice skating rinks to donate their shavings as long as we picked them up.
Oh.
Yes. So, well, what are they going to do with them?
That's true, and I mean, you are shooting in the city of brotherly love, so
right, exactly. They got plenty, right? I don't think the hockey teams were upset.
No.
And then some stuff was made by our production design team. Some of the icicles you saw, like the one that Tommy holds in the film, was actually made of a silicone mold.
Sure.
And but in terms of budget, other than the stuff that we had to paint in, we kind of knew, look, we don't have the money to create like a Dr. Zhivago Winter Wonderland landscape. So we're going to have to suggest it more than show it.
Yeah. Well, as much as I hate to do this, I have to cut us short. We have another director that is coming on today, but I have already been emailing with Tim today.
Oh, okay.
And I want to...
My Tim, the Tim that I'm working with.
Yes, your Tim.
Oh, he's such a great guy.
Tim is fabulous, and I'm going to hook up with him when I get off the air today, and so that you and I can schedule a time to actually do a full in-depth, interview off the air.
Oh, good.
For an
Oh,
interview.
I'd love that. I would love that. As long as you have the time.
I will definitely. Hey, for this, Michael, I definitely will.
Great.
So,
great. I look forward to doing that.
oh, and thank you so much for calling in. I hope that you'll join me on the show again.
Anytime.
Oh,
Anytime.
terrific! And I will talk to you as soon as I talk to Tim today.
Great. You have a great one. It was so nice speaking with you.
Oh, thanks, Michael. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Michael Wechsler, writer-director of Altered Minds. And yes, you'll hear more from him in the future. And right now, we have Nathan Williams, first-time feature director. If There's a Hell Below, premiere yesterday at Slamdance. How did it go?
It went great. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, Nathan, this is so exciting today because I've got, you on, Michael on, and both of you have these incredible psychological thrillers that are the pacing and the performance is so key.
Yeah, I was listening to the end of his interview. I'm interested to check his film out.
So. Oh, you blew me away with your film because
thank you.
The way you have it constructed. How did you? Because I know you also did your own editing. Did you not?
I did.
So you wrote, directed, and edited. How did
Too many hats, probably, but that's
No,
that was our budget level.
I think all the hats work to your advantage with this film because the dialogue is minimal. This is about ambient sound, which your sound design is fabulous, but it's also all about your pacing, building tension. As Michael had said about his film, that fear of dread as to what's unfolding, and also the ambiguity of you don't really know what's going on.
Right. Yeah, it's in a way I like to say it's a detective film where the audience is the detective. You have to really, none of the characters you have specific reason to trust, and they're trying to figure out if they can trust each other, and you're trying to figure out if you can trust them, and everyone is who they say they are. So. Yeah, it's been a fun process to get to this point, and I'm glad. It's very nice to finally have the world see it, because a movie like this where it's based on mood and tension, I know it's not tense for me because I know what's going to happen. I know which shot follows each one, so it's you kind of take this leap of faith that I believe this is going to work, and then people start to finally see it, and it's pretty exciting.
Now, when you were writing the script for If There's a Hell Below, were you visualizing, were you already envisioning how you were going to shoot this, the imagery you wanted to have on screen?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm writing for myself as a director, I was writing with a pretty specific visual style in mind. I knew I was going to work with the cinematographer I ended up working with. He's a longtime collaborator of mine. So I initially wrote it actually as kind of a prose short story, where I went into much greater detail about the images than you would in a traditional screenplay. Certainly a screenplay you were writing for somebody else. And then using that kind of short story format that described the visuals more specifically to attract people to the project. Because I think the screenplay, because dialogue is so minimal at times, it would feel like, well, what's going on here? It's very dry, it's very vague. I was able to flesh that out more.
Well, something that you and Chris Messina did so beautifully. You have some very unique camera angles. You show us bits and pieces, very Hitchcockian in some respects.
Thanks.
We will see just the feet at the bottom of at the bottom of the car, or just the back of a head face down in the dirt, not a whole body but just a piece, or Deborah's her driving gloves. I mean, which was an interesting touch that you did, I have to say, to have those white and cream driving gloves and her also wearing the white and cream cowboy boots.
Yeah. My actress was like, "Am I going to look ridiculous?" Like, no. You're going to look interesting, and people are going to want to know more about you. Which I hope that's how you feel.
Well, it's like I kept thinking, who the heck buys white cowboy boots? Obviously, this was done in the summer and couldn't have been after Labor Day. So,
Right.
'cause you can't wear white after
Yeah.
Labor Day.
No, well before Labor Day, should be aware.
But
yeah, I mean, Hitchcock is a huge influence, and when you're constructing a film like this about being watched and being followed and anticipation, I mean, there's no better resource to go to than to look at his films. So if we get called Hitchcockian, it's a we take that as a huge compliment.
yeah, I mean, you have some moments in there that really, and just following, following just the legs or following just the arms, and it's that unseen factor that Hitchcock always celebrated, to let the audience's mind, because the mind is so powerful, it can take you in so many directions, and that just helps fuel a story like yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing you always want with a film like this is you want to keep the audience wanting to know more. Mm-hmm. You don't want to frustrate them. So it's a fine line to walk of kind of feeding them bits and pieces along the way where they're getting it, and they say, well, what's outside the frame? What's on the other side of this hill? And so kind of feeding that out at the right kind of pace is the challenge.
So now, how would you describe the plot of this film for somebody that hasn't seen it, isn't on the festival circuit to see it, just hearing about it for the first time?
Yeah, so it's about a young, ambitious journalist who is contacted by a woman claiming to be a national security leaker, sort of an Edward Snowden type person, and she wants to meet him out in the middle of nowhere where they can't be observed or recorded, and then she wants to break this story. So he meets her, and they're trying to figure out if she can trust him as a journalist, if he can trust that she is who she says she is. Mm-hmm. And then she has this level of paranoia, which he initially thinks is paranoia and may or may not be, based on some real dangers that they find themselves in.
Well, and that's one of the interesting things, is the paranoia factor. And I've got to commend Connor Marks, who plays the male journalist Abe, because Connor really plays that of, and even has you as an audience member believing that, okay, maybe she really is just crazy. Right. And very dismissive and very questioning until things finally start to come together so that we start seeing the puzzle pieces. But Connor's performance is it's very interesting, especially when put up against Carol Roscoe.
Right. Yeah, I mean they're very much a contrast, and he's the in the kind of the traditional thriller structure, he's the naive one who keeps getting them into trouble. And the challenge with a character like that in writing it and performing it is making that person feel real. In the schlocky horror movie, it's the person who goes in the basement when there's no reason you'd ever go in the basement. Right. And everyone in the audience is like, why are you going in the basement, you dummy? And so finding a plausible, in this style of film, finding a real psychologically plausible reason for this person to keep getting them into greater and greater danger. And I mean, Connor is great. I think it's not like one of these showy performances, but it's actually a very difficult character to do, and I think he really nailed it. Yeah,
very much so, because of the beats of Abe and the twists and turns that you have in here as little snippets unfold.
Yeah.
You need somebody who can play to the best advantage of each of those. They've got to be able to turn on a dime with nuance. And Connor does a beautiful job with that.
Yeah, and he's really the perspective of the audience as much as anyone is, that he's seeing kind of these things and not sure what the dangers are. And a lot of his performance is him just kind of looking and thinking. And those are harder to do than, big great lines to deliver for an actor. So yeah, he's someone I've worked with before in my shorts, and it was great having him in that role.
And you also, something that I truly appreciate here is this runs as in real time.
Yeah, for the most part. There's a couple kind of ellipses, but it was written to run entirely in real time, and hopefully feels that way. this whole kind of story is really just a couple hours and plays out, with that kind of relentless, this is happening right now sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a great relentless intensity to it.
Yeah, there was a point very early in the process when I had the insane idea to do the entire film as a single take, and my which would be literally real time, but a couple producer friends of mine convinced me that I would die in the process of trying to achieve that at our budget level. So,
yeah, it would be. Yeah, you would be experiencing hell below in real life if you tried that.
Yeah, the film never would have been finished. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
No.
It was for the best. That's why it's good to seek counsel of people who give you real advice.
So, what was the learning curve like for you jumping? Because I know you've done quite a few shorts, but jumping into not only a feature but a feature of this nature.
Having done as many shorts as I had, it wasn't that daunting. Especially when we felt really good about the foundation. I mean, we felt good about the script. We felt great about the cast. We felt great about the crew. And, just believing that, as long as we're executing kind of every day. And everything was really, really planned. At this budget level, I can't just wing it. So we had really tight shot lists, and we knew how everything was going to fit together. And no, it wasn't that, it didn't feel like that huge a leap as apart from just the time, the entire movie from conception to today is, probably about 2 years, which is much longer than you spend on a short. Mm-hmm. So I've been living in this world of Hell Below for so long.
So, now that if there's a Hell Below, so is there a Hell Above now that we're going to see?
Well, there won't, in terms of another film or like an explicit
Either
chapter
one.
2?
Either one. I would love to see it. I'd love to see a chapter 2 with this one.
Well, some people have said that, and I don't want to, there is potential for at least some of the characters.
There is potential. Yes, we're not giving away spoilers.
Yeah. I guess that implies that not everyone in the movie dies. But, yeah, it's not my next step. If there was genuine interest and the requisite actors were interested in revisiting those roles, it's something, if we found the right story, it would be fun. It certainly would be fun to work in this kind of mood, in this genre again, on a bigger scale. Where we could have more than 2 or 3 cars and things like that. So,
and I know before we totally run out of time here, I want to make sure everybody knows that if you're up at Slam Dance, you can still see if there's a Hell Below on Wednesday?
Wednesday at 1 p.m. at the Treasure Mountain Inn,
at
the top of the hill.
Where do you go after Slam Dance?
I go back home to Portland, Oregon, and we'll see which other festivals feel like they want to show our movie. Well,
they would be quite remiss and stupid not to.
Yeah. Well, from your mouth to their ears.
Oh, Nathan, thank you so much. I'm actually going to hook up with Karen afterwards because I want to do an in-depth one-on-one with you.
I'd love to. That sounds great.
Outside of the show. So I'll hook up with her and we get something scheduled. But
awesome. Thanks so much for having me on, Debbie.
Nathan, thank you so much. And I will talk to you again soon.
Talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. And that was Nathan Williams, writer, director, editor of If There's a Hell Below. If you were at Slam Dance Wednesday, take yourself to the theater and catch this because it's a really worth your time. And then go home and get on VOD and watch Altered Minds from Michael Wechsler. So that's all the time we have today. Next week, I don't know what we're going to be doing next week. I haven't planned it out yet. So we'll find out next Monday. Until then, I'm Debbie Elias for Behind the Lens.